welcome to another episode of Cooking with Brad, brought to you by Boston College Dining Services. Today we're going to make a fried green tomato BLT. It's summertime and the living's easy. Summertime is tomato season, and if you're anything like me and you grow your own, you get a bunch of these green guys. I have a hard time getting some ripe tomatoes, so whenever I plant tomatoes in the summer, I can't wait for fried green tomatoes. And I don't mean the Kathy Bates movie. She did win an Academy Award. Now, if you have a garden like mine, you watch it grow, you get excited to pick all these tomatoes. But what ends up happening is you just end up with a bunch of green tomatoes. And what do you do with them? They're not trash. They're pretty delicious. And what I do is I pick them and I turn them into a fried green tomato BLT. So today, we're going to pick these right from my garden, go up into my kitchen, and make that BLT. I also happen to have a little bit of lettuce in this garden, which is going to be pretty sweet on this sandwich. And this is the simple list of ingredients that we'll need for our sandwich. So to start, we'll need our green tomato. We'll need some bacon. We'll need some lettuce. That's your BLT part. Chipotle mayo, because it's better than regular mayo. And bread. I'm using a loaf of sourdough bread, which will go against the argument of BLT purists, but we won't get into that today. So to start, we have our green tomato. And what we need to do is just remove the top here by coring it out with a paring knife. You want to use a knife that's appropriate for the job, and the paring knife is the one to do that. So once we get the core out, we want to just shave a little bit right off the top. When we move to bread these tomatoes, that will help the flour stick to the top of the tomato so we get to use the entire tomato. So then you want to just cut maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch slices all the way down the tomato. And then we're going to need to bread them. So this is called the standard breading procedure. It starts with flour. Then you use egg, and then you finally coat with breadcrumbs. The standard breading procedure is any breading procedure that you would do with a breadcrumb. So to start, you take your product and you put it into the flour. You want to make sure that it coats everywhere. And with the green tomatoes, there's a little bit of liquid on them, so that helps the flour just stick. So once we have all of our tomatoes dredged in flour, we move on to the egg and the breadcrumb. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our flour-coated tomato, put it into the egg, get that coated with egg, and then move it to the breadcrumbs. And you just repeat this process until you have everything breaded. There's tons of different breadcrumbs you can use. I'm using seasoned Italian breadcrumbs. It's what I found in my cabinet. And I do want to point out that you want to season your flour with salt and pepper. It helps to develop some of the flavors in this, and whenever you're doing something breading, you always want to make sure you season your flour. So when we get ready to fry the tomatoes, we're going to use a cast iron skillet. You'll need about a 1/4 inch of oil. We're not going to deep fry, we're just going to shallow fry here. And what you want to do is you want to test your tomato first. So you put it into your oil to see if it's hot enough. If you have a thermometer, that's great. So if you notice on that last tomato, it didn't bubble. Now as I put this one in here, you can see it start to sizzle and bubble. That's how we know the oil is hot enough. If it's not hot enough, you want to remove the tomato right away so it won't get soggy. So as we're frying, the oil will expand. So I probably have a little too much here, kind of almost trying to do it deep fry, but it's still a shallow fry because it's not fully submerged. All right, once we have all of our tomatoes fried, we're going to build our sandwich. So to start, we've got our toasted sourdough. And if you are using sourdough, make sure you don't over toast it. Sourdough gets super crispy. So here we are adding our chipotle mayo right on. We're just spreading it on as heavily as possible, because really this sandwich is just an appropriate way for us to eat chipotle mayo. Its sandwich structure is important, so we want to put the tomatoes right on the mayonnaise so it sticks. And then to this, we're going to add our bacon. And at this point, I noticed something. And I'm going to introduce a new segment I call Going Rogue. So I sat there thinking to myself, I've got this egg that I've only had tomatoes and flour in. So I took it and threw it into my bacon pan and cooked like a little omelet. and then decide to throw that right on top of my sandwich. So once you've got your egg on there now, you're going to add your lettuce. And as I said before, sandwich structure is really important. So that lettuce is going to stick to this Chipotle mayo, which is going to give us that one-handed sandwich crushability. The only thing left to do here is enjoy the summer, enjoy your fried green tomatoes, and hopefully you can get some red tomatoes someday.